It started with a frequency no one could explain. A low rhythmic pulse that appeared deep in the southern data streams of the Himawari 9 satellite, the Japanese weather observatory stationed above the Pacific. At first it looked like interference, a smear of repeating waves across a routine thermal scan of the Antarctic continent. But the rhythm wasn't random. It beat with precision, every 12 minutes like a pulse beneath the world's thickest sheet of ice. I didn't believe it when I first saw the report. The initial analysis came from an intern, a quiet student from Kyoto University who was cross-checking long-wave radiation patterns. She had written in broken English, "The ice is breathing." Those 3 words were dismissed in the morning briefing, buried beneath meteorological jargon, yet the dataset refused to die. Each night the same pulse returned, identical amplitude, identical intervals, but its source point was drifting westward, as though something was moving below the ice. The Himawari 9 array is sensitive enough to read the shimmer of clouds across the Pacific, but this signal came from a depth no satellite should sense. The coordinates placed it near the Vostok subglacial basin, a region already infamous among researchers for strange magnetic fluctuations. Beneath that frozen plateau lies a lake sealed off for millions of years, an entire ecosystem hidden beneath 4 kilometers of solid ice. And now somehow it was transmitting. Within days, whispers began to circulate between the agencies, NOAA, JAXA, and the European Space Consortium. Files marked restricted polar telemetry appeared in shared databases, only to vanish hours later. Someone was watching the watchers. When the Anomaly's harmonic range began to climb, I was sent a mirrored copy of the raw feed by a contact in Hobart. What I saw changed everything I understood about the Earth beneath us. The frequency wasn't a single tone. It was layered, a cluster of sub-frequencies weaving into one another like the strands of a heartbeat. When rendered as audio, it produced a low, almost human cadence, too deliberate to be natural static. The analyst who ran the spectral comparison found that its harmonic intervals matched no geological process, no tectonic echo, no ice quake, no magma plume. Yet the waveform resembled something alive. Electrical activity like neurons firing across vast distances. As I traced the coordinates across archived seismic logs, a pattern emerged. The pulse aligned perfectly with a cluster of unexplained tremors recorded over the past 6 months, stretching from the Ross Sea to the South Magnetic Pole. Each tremor, small enough to escape headlines, had occurred precisely 12 minutes after the satellite's thermal peak. Whatever was beneath the ice wasn't still, it was stirring. When I reached out to a retired NASA geophysicist, he hesitated before speaking. That phrase haunted me. Weeks passed, and the Himawari readings continued to climb. What began as a faint oscillation had become a distinct pattern, visible even on secondary satellite feeds. The energy signature was spreading, not through the air or the water, but through the planet's own magnetic field. Small stations in Argentina, Chile, and South Africa began detecting sympathetic spikes in the Schumann resonance, the natural electromagnetic heartbeat of the Earth itself. Something deep below Antarctica was amplifying that frequency, as if testing its reach. Then came the blackout. On a night in early June, the Himawari 9 feed went offline for exactly 27 minutes. Every regional relay, every data mirror, every live telemetry stream, silent. When the systems came back, a segment of the previous 12 hours of data had been wiped clean. The missing window coincided exactly with the moment the anomaly's pulse frequency peaked. The official statement cited solar flare interference, but astronomers confirmed there had been none that day. It was as if the system had been told to forget. The more I searched, the more the pieces aligned with something far older than modern science. Buried within declassified CIA archives was a document I had read years earlier, a strange apocalyptic file known among researchers as the Adam and Eve story. It described how every few thousand years the Earth undergoes a catastrophic shift, magnetic poles flipping, continents drowning beneath walls of water, civilization reset to dust. The author claimed that beneath Antarctica lay the pivot point of this global rotation, a place where energies beyond comprehension slumbered, waiting for the next reversal. At the time, it sounded like myth disguised as science. But the frequency data from Himawari 9 felt eerily similar to the descriptions in that file. A pulse, a rising energy, the precursor to a planetary event. Could it be that what we were detecting wasn't random at all, but the first tremors of a cycle returning? I began to compare the wave intervals with the historic geomagnetic records from the last known pole shift. The ratios matched, down to the same 12-minute resonance gap. The probability of that being coincidence was infinitesimal. Yet every time I presented my findings to higher channels, the response was silence. Not rejection. Silence, the kind that feels like an unseen hand covering your mouth. When the Japanese data center performed its scheduled maintenance in late July, a low-level technician leaked an internal memo. It mentioned that the Anomaly's centroid, its exact source, had moved again. But this time it wasn't drifting randomly. It was drawing a path. The plotted coordinates formed an arc beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet, curving toward a location that caught my breath. A geological formation long believed to be an ancient impact crater. Its name, the Wilkes Land Anomaly. That region has haunted geologists for decades. Radar scans show a circular depression roughly 300 miles wide, buried under miles of ice, with gravitational readings suggesting the presence of dense metallic mass below. Some believe it to be the scar of an asteroid impact that triggered the last mass extinction. Others, the remnants of a supercontinent collapse. But now, with the Himawari pulse converging there, a third theory began to surface, one far more unsettling. What if the energy source beneath Wilkes Land isn't natural at all? Remember the Himawari 9 anomaly? That strange rhythmic pulse from the depths of the Antarctic? Well, the rabbit hole just got a whole lot deeper. We've unearthed something that changes everything. It started with a dusty sealed U.S. Navy data reel from 1978. The label read, Project Echo 7, Polar Acoustic Penetration. A bit of a mouthful, right? But what was inside sent a shiver down my spine. The reel contained sonar recordings from a submarine mission under the Antarctic ice shelf. As I played the audio, I couldn't believe my ears. It was the same pulse, the exact same rhythm, the same strange modulation as the Himawari signal, just recorded over 40 years earlier. The mission report was just as chilling. The crew was using experimental sonar to map the seabed, trying to penetrate deeper than ever before. Everything was normal until they detected a highly resonant structure deep beneath the Earth's crust. Then, the impossible happened. Something answered back, a delayed echo, perfectly mimicking their sonar pulse. The final panicked entry from the mission commander reads, "Something below us is responding in kind." And then, silence. The report just ends. Just as we were trying to process the Echo 7 discovery, another piece of the puzzle fell into our laps. A researcher's journal recovered from an abandoned Antarctic base from the same era. The journal was found frozen to the body of its author, who had vanished during a violent storm weeks after his last entry. His notes describe a deep-sea drilling operation, one that went way off the books. He writes about the drills piercing what he called metallic layers far beneath the continental crust. Layers that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of geology. One page, stained and warped by ice, talks about a bizarre phenomenon. He describes heat without fire radiating from the drill site, and a low, persistent humming sound that, in his words, seemed alive. It's clear he was terrified, convinced they had broken through to something ancient and unnatural. His final entries are frantic, paranoid, describing the feeling of being watched from below. Then he walked out into a blizzard and was never seen alive again. So we have a 40-year-old recording of the pulse and a dead scientist's journal describing a living hum beneath the ice. Coincidence? I don't think so. But it gets worse. This isn't just history anymore, it's happening right now. Across Antarctica, modern research stations are suddenly going haywire. We're getting reports of catastrophic compass failures, with needles spinning wildly. GPS systems are drifting by miles, making navigation impossible. And the strangest part? Spontaneous equipment fires. Consoles and monitors are bursting into flames with no apparent cause. It's chaos. Scientists on the ground started comparing notes, and they found a terrifying pattern. These malfunctions are all preceded by massive, localized magnetic bursts. And when they synchronized the timing of these bursts with the public Himawari 9 satellite data, they lined up perfectly. Every time the pulse is detected, a wave of electromagnetic energy washes over the continent. This proves the pulse isn't just an acoustic anomaly. It's a physical force, powerful enough to fry electronics and warp the planet's magnetic field. But the most alarming discovery came from the satellite engineers themselves. Out of sheer curiosity, they ran the pulse's rhythmic pattern through software designed to analyze biological data. The result? It matched the accelerating pattern of a heartbeat under stress. The pulse isn't just repeating, it's getting faster. Whatever is down there, it's waking up. Then, out of the blue, I received an encrypted message. The sender claimed to be the last surviving member of the original Project Echo 7 crew. He's an old man now, living in hiding for decades. He told me the official report was a cover-up. That resonant structure they detected, it wasn't a natural formation, and it wasn't a device. It was a barrier, he whispered, his voice trembling over the secure line. A containment. We weren't mapping the crust. We were knocking on a door that was never meant to be opened. He was about to tell me what was behind that door, what they had truly unleashed. He said, "The echo." It wasn't a reply. It was a... And just like that, the line went dead. I tried to reconnect, but the connection was gone. His digital footprint wiped clean. It was as if he never existed. He knew they were listening. And now, this. Just hours ago, seismic sensors in Wilkesland, the very epicenter of the anomaly, detected a new signal. It's not the pulse. It's something else. A new frequency, deeper, lower, and infinitely louder. It's a sound that seems to resonate not just through the rock, but with the Earth's magnetic core itself. For the first time in recorded history, the pulse from the deep has received an answer. Something has responded, and we are caught in the middle. The question is no longer what is under the ice. The question is, what happens now that it knows we're here? Stay safe, and stay tuned. If you want to follow this story as it develops, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're going to need all the eyes we can get on this. Thank you for watching. We've been told the great extinctions were random. Asteroids, volcanoes, cosmic bad luck. But what if they weren't? What if there's a pattern, a rhythm to the rise and fall of life on Earth? We've been digging, cross-referencing data that nobody was supposed to connect. And what we found changes everything. Every major extinction event, every magnetic pole shift in our planet's history, lines up perfectly with a massive spike in a specific resonance frequency. It's a planetary heartbeat that, every few millennia, seems to reset itself. This isn't just a new theory. We found a document, something ancient, dismissed by mainstream science. We call it the Adam and Eve document. Its author, writing thousands of years ago, didn't just describe this cycle. They predicted it. They called it an energetic inversion, a necessary cyclical reset for the Earth itself. It sounded like science fiction, like ancient mythology, until we saw the numbers. The data doesn't just suggest this is possible, it screams that it's happening again right now. Think of it like this. Have you ever struck a tuning fork and watched another one across the room start to vibrate? That's called sympathetic resonance. Now, imagine that on a global scale. We started getting reports from independent monitoring stations, from the frozen volcanic fields of Iceland to the Atacama Desert in Chile. They were all picking up the same thing, faint, harmonic echoes of the powerful energy pulse we first detected in Antarctica. The entire planet, from its crust to its molten core, is beginning to vibrate in sympathy with whatever is happening at the South Pole. It's not a localized event anymore. The Earth is tuning itself to a new frequency. The planetary orchestra is warming up, and we have no idea what symphony it's about to play. When we first saw the frequency pattern, it felt familiar, like a half-remembered dream. So we dug deeper, into geological records, ice core samples, ancient tree rings. We looked for this exact energetic signature in the past, and we found it. 12,000 years ago. The timing is chillingly precise, aligning perfectly with the last great cataclysm, the Younger Dryas event, the era of the Great Flood that appears in myths all over the world. It's no longer a coincidence. And that's when a line from the Adam and Eve document echoed in our minds. The author warned with terrifying clarity that when the poles themselves begin to hum with this energy, the shift is no longer approaching. It's imminent. The Earth is humming right now. So, what are the official channels saying? You might have seen the headlines. Unusual solar activity causes minor magnetic fluctuations. They're running routine tests, it's all under control. But we've seen the internal memos. We have sources on the inside, people risking their careers to get the truth out. The words they're using behind closed doors are not fluctuations. They're using words like containment breach and uncontrollable resonance cascade. While they're telling the public to stay calm, they are in a state of panic. And what about the independent scientists, the brilliant minds who aren't on a government payroll? The ones who started noticing these anomalies years ago? They're being silenced. Their research funding is cut overnight. Their online channels and academic papers are scrubbed from the internet. A coordinated global campaign of disinformation is underway to stop you from asking the one question they can't answer. What is really happening? We needed to see what was happening from above. We managed to gain access to raw data from the Himawari 9 satellite, a weather satellite with a powerful view of our planet. We weren't looking at clouds. We were looking at energy signatures. And there it was, an image that defied all known physics. Massive, shimmering arcs of radiation were connecting the geographic South Pole directly to a recent solar flare. It wasn't just the sun bombarding the Earth with energy. It was a two-way street. The energy from the sun was being pulled, drawn down, channeled by something at the pole. It was as if a colossal machine, buried for eons under miles of ice, was drawing power from our star, charging itself for something. It's not just a planetary event, it's a solar one. And we are caught in the middle. We've been so focused on the energy, on the readings and the frequencies, that we almost missed the most terrifying part. In the last 72 hours, seismic arrays across the globe started detecting something new. They're not earthquakes. The signatures are all wrong. Earthquakes are chaotic, violent releases of stress. These are different. They're rhythmic. They're structured. They're organized. They're less like tremors and more like movements. Slow, deep, powerful movements originating from deep within the planet's crust, all synchronized with the pulse from Antarctica. That's when we understood. This entire time we thought we were tracking an energy event, some kind of geological process getting ready to erupt. We were wrong. It's not just energy trying to escape, it's something waking up. The patterns are undeniable. The historical precedent is set. The governments are lying. The planet is vibrating. And something deep beneath the Antarctic ice is not only drawing power from the sun, but it's beginning to move. We're no longer observers of a scientific mystery. We are living inside of it. The question is no longer if the reset is coming, but what happens when the thing causing it finally reveals itself. What is waking up? And what does it want? This story is far from over. If you believe this information needs to be seen, share this video. The more people who know, the harder it is to hide the truth. Follow our channel and hit the notification bell. The next update could come at any moment. Thank you for watching. Stay aware and stay safe. They called it the pulse, a single deep thrum from Antarctica, recorded once every 24 hours. At first, scientists dismissed it as a seismic anomaly, a geological quirk of the Earth's most isolated continent. But then, the pulse began to change. It wasn't just a sound anymore. It became a current. Oceanic patterns, stable for millennia, began to shift erratically. Massive flows of warm tropical water started pouring into the frigid Antarctic seas, defying all known models of oceanography. Imagine warm rivers flowing beneath frozen plains, melting the ice from below. Underwater drones, sent to investigate these bizarre thermal anomalies, captured something impossible. Underneath the vast Ross ice shelf, They filmed spiraling currents of bioluminescent plankton, glowing an ethereal, electric blue. They looked like veins, massive glowing veins pulsing with an unnatural light, tracing a path toward the continent's deep interior. They were all flowing toward a single point, the Wilkes Land Anomaly. The Wilkes Land Anomaly has always been a mystery. It's a massive gravitational signature buried under miles of ice, suggesting a crater twice the size of the one that wiped out the dinosaurs. But this was different. Subsurface radar penetrating the ice sheet revealed a new development. A cavity was growing beneath the anomaly, a pocket of intense, unnatural heat. This cavity was expanding, melting the ice from the inside out. But the heat source wasn't chaotic like a volcanic chamber. It was structured, forming perfect symmetrical arcs that pulsed with energy. It was hotter than any magma our planet could produce, yet it was organized, deliberate. This wasn't geology. This was technology. Then, the glitches started. It began with satellites. At the exact moment the Antarctic pulse occurred, satellites orbiting thousands of miles above would flicker. GPS systems would momentarily lose their lock. Deep space telescopes would record bursts of static. It was a minor, almost imperceptible inconvenience at first, but the rhythm was undeniable. The pulse was no longer just a local phenomenon. It was reaching into space. Soon, the effect cascaded downward into our digital world. The world's data, our collective memory stored on servers and drives, began to corrupt. It was subtle initially. A corrupted file here, a lost sector there. But it accelerated. The great library of Alexandria burned in a day. Our digital Alexandria was evaporating pixel by pixel. Historical archives and national databases spontaneously erased themselves. Financial records vanished. Entire swaths of the internet flickered out of existence, leaving digital ghost towns in their wake. The pulse wasn't just a sound or a heat signature. It was a signal, and it seemed to be targeting information. As I'm even recording this, I'm watching it happen. My own files, the very research I've gathered for this report. They're disappearing. Folders are emptying themselves in real time. The data I had on the oceanic currents, gone. The satellite glitch logs, corrupted. It's like a digital ghost is haunting my machine, deleting the evidence as I present it. This isn't a passive event anymore, it's an active, intelligent process. Something is trying to blind us, to erase our understanding of what's happening. It's not just erasing the past, it's erasing the present. With global systems failing and data integrity collapsing, conventional research was impossible. Governments were paralyzed, unable to trust their own information. So, a private consortium, a group of anonymous billionaires with a vested interest in survival, funded a desperate last-ditch effort, a field expedition. Their goal was to bypass the corrupted data and get eyes on the source, to physically go to the heart of the anomaly. They commissioned a fleet of advanced submersibles, designed to withstand the crushing pressures beneath the Antarctic ice sheet. The plan was audacious. Enter through the newly formed meltwater channels created by the warm currents and navigate the sub-ice labyrinth to the source of the heat. It was a journey into the unknown, a descent into a world that had been sealed off from humanity for millions of years. The team's logs are our only source of information now. As their submersibles descended beneath the ice shelf, they entered a different world. The water shimmered, not just with the bioluminescent plankton, but with a strange magnetic haze. Their navigation systems went haywire. Compasses didn't just spin, they shattered. The submersible's powerful external lights began to dim and flicker, as if some immense force was draining their power. They were no longer just underwater. They were inside a massive, naturally occurring Faraday cage or something far stranger. Pushing forward on manual controls and sonar, they broke through the final layer of magnetic interference. And then they saw it. Their sonar screens, which had been a mess of static, cleared to reveal an impossible image. Filling their viewports was a structure. It was a dome, a perfect, impossibly large metallic dome half buried in the ancient bedrock. It was kilometers wide, its surface smooth and dark, yet covered in a thin, crystalline layer of refrozen ice. And from its center, A faint rhythmic blue light pulsed outwards in perfect sync with the global phenomenon. It was a heartbeat. The slow, steady heartbeat of a sleeping giant. As the lead submersible approached, its external cameras broadcasting the first clear images of the structure, the dome responded. The faint pulse intensified, shifting from a soft glow to a blinding surge of blue-white energy. It wasn't directed at them. It was directed upward, a concentrated beam of electromagnetic power that shot through the miles of ice above as if it were air. That single, focused surge hit the global satellite network. Every communication, navigation, and observation satellite in orbit was hijacked simultaneously. Every screen on Earth, from Times Square billboards to the phone in your hand, flickered. For a single silent moment, they all broadcast the same thing. A complex, intricate data packet. It wasn't an attack. It was a response. An answer. The thing under the ice hadn't just been pulsing. It had been pinging. It had been sending out a signal, waiting for a sign that someone or something was finally advanced enough to hear it. Our global digital infrastructure, our satellites, our internet, it was all just an antenna. We finally built an antenna large enough for it to notice. The signal we received back wasn't a threat. It was a handshake. After centuries of us shouting into the void, wondering if we were alone, the world has just been pinged back. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey as mind-bending as I did, hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations into the great unknowns. Stay curious. For millennia, Antarctica has been a fortress of ice, a continent shrouded in mystery. We've always believed it to be a barren wasteland, the last untouched frontier on our planet. But what if that was a lie? What if, beneath miles of frozen water, a secret of unimaginable scale has been waiting? Our story begins with a breakthrough in satellite and drone technology. High-resolution scans designed to map the bedrock of the continent started sending back anomalies. At first, scientists dismissed them as geological formations, tricks of light and shadow. But as the data poured in, a pattern emerged. These weren't random shapes. They were structures. Corridors, spires, and vast circular chambers, all arranged with a chilling geometric precision. The scale was staggering. A city, larger than any ever built by human hands, buried and forgotten. The design resembled nothing in our history books. It was alien, yet disturbingly familiar. The lines weren't sharp and rigid like our own architecture. They were curved, flowing, almost organic, as if the entire metropolis was once a single, living organism. Deep within this frozen necropolis, a specialized drone retrieved something extraordinary. An artifact, no larger than a human hand, made of a material that defied classification. It was smooth, dark, and pulsed with a faint inner light. Back in the lab, it began to emit a low-frequency signal. Scientists were baffled. They ran every test, every analysis, but the signal didn't match any known form of communication. It wasn't radio, it wasn't microwave, it was something else entirely. As I stared at the wave patterns on the screen, a horrifying realization washed over me. The frequencies were a perfect match for human neural brainwaves, specifically those associated with memory and deep-seated emotion. The artifact wasn't broadcasting a message, it was remembering. It was sharing a memory from a time before the ice. This discovery sent shockwaves through the academic world, forcing us to re-examine our oldest legends. We combed through ancient texts, forgotten myths, and oral traditions from cultures across the globe. From the flooded lands of Lemuria in Polynesian lore to the radiant southern continent described in Sumerian cuneiform, a common thread appeared. Stories of a paradise at the bottom of the world. A civilization of immense power and wisdom, destroyed by a cataclysmic flood that plunged it into an eternal winter. Could these ruins beneath the Antarctic ice be the physical proof of those legends? Are we looking at the cradle of humanity, our true origin? Or is it something much, much older? Something that was here long before us? While historians and archaeologists debated the origin of the city, a radical new theory emerged from an unexpected source. A leading biophysicist, Dr. Aris Thorne, proposed something that turned the entire investigation on its head. He argued that the pulse we detected wasn't technological. It was biological. He pointed to the organic design of the structures, the flowing, vein-like corridors. He suggested we weren't looking at a city built on the Earth, but a city that was part of the Earth. The pulse, he claimed, was cellular, the planet's own dormant regenerative process, a heartbeat slowly reawakening. In a hushed late-night call, his words still haunt me. He whispered, "We've got it all wrong. We're not exploring ruins. We are living inside a sleeping organism." This hypothesis, as insane as it sounded, was the only one that fit all the data. The city wasn't a city. It was a complex biological system, a global network lying dormant beneath the crust. The artifact wasn't a tool. It was a seed, a repository of genetic memory. The myths weren't just stories, they were humanity's fragmented recollection of living in symbiosis with a sentient planet. We weren't colonists on a dead rock. We were cells, part of a larger being we had long forgotten. As this truth began to dawn on us, the world started to change. Strange weather patterns, seismic shifts that defied geological models, and a palpable sense of anticipation that seemed to hang in the air itself. The planet was waking up. The implications were terrifying and profound. If Earth is a living entity, what does that make us? Are we a cherished part of its consciousness, or a parasitic infection it is finally preparing to shrug off? The myths of a great flood suddenly took on a sinister new meaning. Not a natural disaster, but a cleansing cycle. A planetary immune response. As the pulses from the Antarctic anomaly grew stronger and more frequent, a new signal was detected, originating from the highest point of the buried structure, a massive metallic dome that researchers had nicknamed the Nexus. It was a call and response. A planetary conversation was taking place, and we were caught in the middle. The world held its breath, waiting for the sleeper to open its eyes. Then it happened. The final moments were captured by a series of frantic, disjointed transmissions. Deep beneath the ice, the metallic dome at the heart of the structure began to fracture. Not from pressure, but as if it were blossoming. It split open like a chrysalis, revealing a light so impossibly bright it overloaded every sensor. At that exact moment, thousands of miles above, the Himawari 9 weather satellite captured its last clear image of the southern hemisphere. From the epicenter in Antarctica, a spiral of glowing incandescent veins erupted outward, spreading across the globe along tectonic lines, pulsing in unison like a planetary heartbeat. The feed showed the continents themselves lighting up, a vast interconnected neural network flaring to life for the first time in millennia. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the feed cut to black. Silence. We still don't know what happened next. We don't know if that was the end or a new beginning. We only know that the world we thought we knew is gone. What you've just heard is a glimpse into a mystery that challenges the very foundation of our existence. Is this science fiction, or a future we are not prepared for? The lines are blurring every day. If this story sparked your curiosity, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We dive deep into the unknown every week. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Stay curious, and keep questioning. The first sign something was wrong wasn't an explosion or a tremor. It was silence. A quiet so profound it felt like the world was holding its breath. Then came the pulse. A single unified beat felt by every magnetometer on the planet, from the frozen deserts of Antarctica to the lush research stations near the Arctic Circle. Imagine the Earth as a giant heart, and for one brief, impossible moment, the North and South poles beat in perfect, terrifying unison. Scientists were baffled. Geologists had no models for this. It was a planetary-scale event that simply shouldn't have been possible. On the coastlines, another anomaly began. Tides, governed for eons by the predictable pull of the moon, suddenly broke their celestial chains. In the Bay of Fundy, the water receded a full kilometer beyond its lowest recorded tide, leaving ships stranded on the muddy seafloor. On the opposite side of the world, in the Mediterranean, rogue waves crashed into sleepy coastal towns without any seismic trigger. It was as if the oceans themselves were confused, sloshing in their basin like water in a disturbed bowl. But the most beautiful and unsettling spectacle unfolded in the skies. Above the equator, in places like Quito, Singapore, and Central Africa, regions that had never witnessed such a phenomenon, the night ignited with color. Auroras, those ethereal curtains of light usually reserved for the polar latitudes, danced over tropical rainforests and sprawling cities. Emerald greens, deep purples, and crimson reds painted the equatorial sky. It was a breathtaking sight, a cosmic masterpiece. Yet, it was also a profound violation of the laws of physics as we knew them. The planet's magnetic shield, our silent protector, was warping in ways we couldn't comprehend. The world was beautiful, and it was breaking. Then came the second blow, striking not at the planet itself, but at the fragile nervous system of our civilization. Power grids, the lifeblood of modern society, began to flicker. Cities would plunge into darkness for a few seconds, then light up again, seemingly at random. Traffic lights went haywire, causing gridlock. Hospitals switched to emergency generators, their vital systems rebooting in a panic. It wasn't a blackout. It was a stutter, a global hesitation in the flow of power that hinted at a much deeper instability. Our eyes in the sky were the next to go blind. One by one, satellite networks started failing. The GPS constellation, a marvel of precise timing and orbital mechanics, fell out of sync. A flight from Tokyo to Los Angeles suddenly found itself 100 miles off course. Shipping vessels, reliant on satellite navigation, drifted aimlessly in the vastness of the ocean. The intricate web of global communication, the very thing that made our world feel small and connected, was being systematically dismantled. But the most insidious effect was on time itself. From the atomic clocks in Boulder, Colorado, to the digital watch on your wrist, everything lost exactly 3.7 seconds, simultaneously, all over the world. It wasn't a drift or a slow decay. It was an instantaneous universal subtraction. Time, the one constant we all believed in, had just been edited. It was at this moment that a lone data analyst, staring at the chaotic feeds from a deep space communication array, typed a frantic message to her team. She looked at the strange rhythmic patterns replacing the static. It wasn't noise. It was a signal, a repeating structured pulse. She wrote, "It's no longer broadcasting, it's syncing." Something wasn't just talking to us. It was syncing our entire world to its own rhythm. Just when we thought we were completely cut off, a single eye opened again. Himawari 9, a Japanese weather satellite presumed dead, flickered back to life. For 12 minutes it transmitted a steady, high-resolution feed. But it wasn't pointed at the clouds. Its lens was aimed directly at the poles. The image it sent back was clear, sharp, and utterly impossible. Beneath the immense ice sheets of both the Arctic and Antarctic, two colossal domes of light were visible. They weren't reflecting the sun. They were glowing from within, pulsing with a soft, blue-white energy. They were immense, continent-sized structures that had been hidden beneath miles of ice now revealed. They were perfectly symmetrical, one at the top of the world, the other at the bottom, like two ends of a cosmic battery. For 12 minutes, the world's remaining scientific community stared in awe and terror at these images. What were they? Who built them? Were they the source of the pulse? The questions came in a flood, but there were no answers. And then, as abruptly as it began, the transmission ended. The screen dissolved into static. But this wasn't just a lost connection. Across every server that had received the data, from NASA to the European Space Agency, the file began to auto-encrypt. Within seconds, it was an unbreakable string of code. A moment later, it vanished completely, deleting itself from every hard drive, every server, every backup tape. It was as if the 12-minute broadcast had never happened. The evidence was gone, leaving only the ghost of a memory in the minds of those who saw it. In the ensuing silence, another voice emerged. It wasn't from a satellite or a television broadcast. It bled through the static on old shortwave radio frequencies, the forgotten highways of communication. The voice was strange, a perfect synthesis of mechanical precision and human intonation. It was calm, devoid of emotion, and spoke with an authority that chilled you to the bone. It spoke only 6 words, repeated in every language simultaneously. Cycle complete. Realignment begins. It wasn't a threat or a warning. It was a statement of fact, a declaration that a process, long dormant, was now entering its next phase. The setup was over. The main event was starting. And so, the realignment began. The first and most fundamental rule of our world was broken. Compasses, which for millennia had faithfully pointed north, began to spin wildly. Then, slowly, deliberately, they all reversed. Needles that once sought the Arctic now pointed firmly toward Antarctica. Earth's magnetic field, the invisible force field that had shaped life on this planet for billions of years, was flipping. The consequences were immediate and catastrophic. Satellites, no longer held in their delicate orbital dance by a stable magnetic field, began to drift. Hundreds of billions of dollars of technology tumbled out of orbit, burning up in the atmosphere like a meteor shower of our own making. The sky itself became a canvas of chaos. The auroras were no longer confined to the poles or the equator. They erupted everywhere. The entire sky from horizon to horizon burned with shimmering, violent storms of light. It was a terrifyingly beautiful apocalypse, as if the heavens themselves were on fire. On the ground, the planet groaned under the strain. The immense pressures of the shifting magnetic field triggered a new phenomenon. In Greenland and Antarctica, ancient glaciers, ice that had been frozen for millions of years, began to crack open. Colossal fissures raced across the ice sheets, releasing pockets of air from a different epoch, a different world. The very atmosphere of a prehistoric Earth, trapped for eons, hissed into our own. What was in that ancient air? What long-extinct microbes? What forgotten chemistry was now mixing with our own? The realignment wasn't just changing our future, it was unleashing a ghost from our planet's deepest past. As the world tilts, as the sky burns, and as the very ground beneath our feet forgets which way is north, a final, fragmented message finds its way into the archives of a forgotten server. It's the voice of a historian, a scholar from a time before the sink, speaking of a recurring myth found in the oldest human cultures, a myth of a global reset. They called it the Adam and Eve cycle. His voice crackles, fading in, and out of the static, destruction followed by renewal, a cleansing of the world to begin anew. The static grows louder, a rhythmic hum. But this time, something survived to remember. The screen fades to black, but the sound remains for a few seconds longer. It's a familiar hum, a steady pulse, the same pulse that started it all. The heartbeat of a realigned Earth,